In this game, impacts aren't just expected, they're celebrated. That's why premier players choose Q-Collar, the proven shield for their brains. Be ready for the clash. Keep your head protected and in the game.
All right, guys. Defense wins championships, and now we're talking about the class of 2027. Who's going to be the top defenders that get the most attention on September 1st? This is the Q-Collar Inside Lacrosse Recruiting Roundtable Brain Trust. Terry Foy, Dan Kaplan, Kevin Brown. Dan, tell us about the top of the defender group.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to just like the personnel, for me, there's obviously you can tier it out, and there's a lot of top end guys. I think for different coaches, you're going to have a handful of different names in those top 3 to 5 guys. And I think, again, that just is a sign at kind of the depth of the defensive class. And I think it really shows in the fact that, you can go significant portions of adding a name to lists or things like this before you get to a name where you feel like it becomes a slippery slope. And so I feel like from that perspective, there are a ton of, really talented defenders. For me, one guy that really stands out amongst the rest, even amongst a really talented group, is Leif Anderson, headed to Deerfield for his, remainder of his high school career, but had previously been at Brunswick. And again, really physical and does a lot of just checks all of the boxes in terms of an urgent off-ball defender that is doing a lot of the off-ball positioning stuff and communicating well. And then is, a rock solid cover and just plays with an edge, is great off the ground, solid in the clear, just checks all of those boxes.
When it comes to elite on-ball defensemen, I think of a couple Philly-based guys in Carkel, physical Team 10 guy who really love his stance. He can deter Dodgers and push them towards the sideline. He's quite good at staying in front and playing team ball defensively. Adam Dodia, another one, Sleazy Am guy, of course, and brotherly love. He's a guy who's got great footwork and maybe more of a pest than Kel is in terms of pressuring you out of the sidelines, getting in gloves, staying in gloves, and when you don't have the ball, maybe some extracurriculars in there. But Dodia is a guy that you want playing for your team because of that reason.
I agree with you on Leif Anderson in terms of his all-around ability. He's 6'2", 190-pound righty. For me, it's hard to talk about this class without talking about some of the size, especially because in Sean Curry, you have one of the more interesting defensive recruits that we've seen in some time. 6'6", maybe even 6'7". Looks like he could probably weigh 240 to 250 on a lacrosse frame. Also a high-end football recruit. So it's a question as to whether or not he's ultimately destined to play lacrosse. He tells us that he at very least wants to go through the lacrosse recruiting process and see what's available to him. But he's not the only big guy in this class. Another one that stood out to me in the spring was Noah Pacheco from Valor Christian, another Colorado Kings defender. He's about 6'3", a little bit north of 200 pounds. What he may lack in foot speed, he makes up for in his just inability to get moved off a spot if an attackman tries to post him up, but also does a really nice job of using his 6-foot stick in order to create the length to cover up for any type of foot speed deficiency.
Griffin Hamner is one of the top players in the class when it comes to close defense position. Great physical presence, great size. He's pressing out his matchups, and he's able to impact the game in a variety of ways, whether it's getting in passing lanes or disrupting on ball carrying attackmen. I think he projects quite well for the next level as well.
Dan, there are a pair of defenders from the Baltimore area who I'm interested in your thoughts on. Evan Marsh from St. Paul's and Steele Malkin.
Yeah, so I think different players in a variety of ways. I think in terms of projections, Evan March projects as a future #1 cover. I think one of the ways in which he created a reputation for himself was over the course of the spring, doing a nice job in the MIA for St. Paul's as their top cover defender. And again, kind of soared in a matchup against Brendan Millen, #1 player in the 2025 class. So doing a nice job in that matchup was part of what helped to create a reputation amongst, his game. And we've seen that, kind of show as as valid throughout the course of the summer in terms of what he's able to do. And then Steele Malkin, I think, is one of the types of defenders that you may go a game or two without noticing in the best way possible, right? Just doesn't make mistakes, is very, high urgency off ball, always in the best spots possible, active, athletic, urgent, a part of the team defense, but then also does a really nice job on the ball as well. And so I think from their skill sets, it probably projects to them being, different roles at the college level, but both defenders that can get a job done in, a really effective way.
Shades of Will Schaller, I feel like, with Evan March, lefty. I don't say that lightly with how great of a season Schaller had for the Terps. It'll be interesting to see. I was at that game that you referenced in the regular season where he did so well against Brendan Millen, and St. Paul's took them into overtime. So I really like his game. Another guy who's maybe a little bit undersized for 3D Georgia, but plays, again, way bigger than his stature, Harrison Penn. This is a guy who's great on ball. He'll match feet with the best of them, and I think he takes the game to his opponents.
One guy who, to the point that you just made, doesn't stand out necessarily for his size, or I would argue even really kind of his individual athletic attributes. He's more just all around a really good athlete, is Andrew Dangler. And I think more than anything in terms of strength, physicality, speed, quickness, it's just how sound he is. And, whether it's the precision of his checks, how restrained he is in terms of when he throws the checks, but also how well timed they are when he decides that he's going to. Very good at matching feet, very good at matching hips. He does a really nice job in terms of rotating in order to change directions, almost a step ahead of Dodgers and cut off their angle, get to where they want to go before they do. I went to watch both him and Andrew Asaro, who we talked about in the midfield section, after they had made their run with Garden City, and it was remarkable how different I came away impression-wise of each. Asaro overwhelming athletically. Dangler, maybe not so much, but more so just an all-around lacrosse player. Was really impressed by him.
Yeah, I love his game. He's definitely the type of guy that, just makes plays, and at the end of the day you feel his presence in a variety of ways that you may not have expected if you're just looking at it from like a physicality standpoint.
I think two guys who kind of fit that mold of not standing out super physically, but you watch them over and over and you realize, oh wow, they're holding these really talented attackmen to low production outputs. Danny Sullivan, a guy out of Mad Dog, Lars Bergstrom playing for Next Level. Sullivan, a righty who really gets down low, plays great off ball, super great communicator. Bergstrom, great in the clearing game, lefty, great off the ground. These are two guys who can impact the game in a variety of ways as well. And, I mentioned Brandon Fodor earlier. John Fodor is kind of another guy who has the complete package defensively at close, playing for BBL, where he's making those crease fills. He's deterring Dodgers as the on-ball guy. He's super well-rounded and really athletic as well.
Kev, one guy that I want to shout out is somebody that you wrote up after IL Summer Cup playing with 3D Upstate, which was Jason Cunningham, a player who I saw playing with Hilltop last fall, who I came away with a super impressive opinion of. You use the term, just the notion of turnbacks, and I think that's what I like about Cunningham most, is how, for as physical of a presence as he is, he does a great job of getting low and then utilizing his stick in order to make the entire space that a Dodger would have to get around a GLE even wider. And I thought that he does a really nice job of closing the door. For me, Cunningham falls into the category of an all-around guy, and I think that there aren't that many of them, and so I'm kind of surprised that to this point I haven't heard more buzz about him. I think he's going to be a really, really highly sought-after player.
All around in the aspect where he can cover both threatening level of on-ball matchups too, right? Like you throw a bigger guy at him, he's got the physical attributes to match up against the really physical Bull Dodgers, and then you throw out the really speedy guy at him, and he can match feet. So, like you said, turn back, dodgers and getting in gloves, Cunningham is super impressive.
Dan, what do you think of Mark Magliano? He's a guy that's been on our radar for more than 2 years at this point. He's 6'4", he's a physical monster. Where does he fit in, and what do you think you saw to him this summer?
Yeah, I mean, it's super, super impactful, constantly puts the ball on the ground. Yes, has phenomenal size, but also has great instincts and a really good stick as well. Does a ton of like anticipating where the throwback or the next class is going, and then just beats it there and puts the ball on the ground. So like rotating deep into gloves, sliding into turnovers, again, just like a constant menace that puts the ball on the ground and has an awesome stick once it is.
Another guy I'm interested in your opinion of is Jackson Hines, who just recently committed to Navy, Archbishop Spalding, and Annapolis Hawks.
Yeah, so plays alongside Steele Malkin, who I mentioned does a lot of like what I would say is the subtle stuff. And then Jackson Hines is not as subtle, like heavy, hard checks, feel his presence all the way, gets out, has great feet, so like has a presence on the perimeter and, you know, trusts himself to be able to get out, crowd dodgers, and realizes like, okay, I'm not going to get blown by here because I do, in fact, have the athleticism to, you know, open my hips up, run, and, you know, make sure that I'm keeping him from dangerous space. Again, throws heavy checks, hard checks, slides into turnovers, and again has length to his game as well. And so I think there's a lot to like there. I think over the course of the next 2 years, there's a little bit of like reining in terms of like his eagerness to go and slide and throw those heavy checks, and just becoming a little bit more decisive with when he goes, so that he's sliding and getting into turnover situations and not just like sliding to support. Hayes Griffin, 3D Georgia, Loomis, really physical, again, a really, top-end athlete that does a nice job of checking a lot of boxes and is pretty well-rounded and can be a great cover as well. And then Patrick Bashai, to me, is top-end, stick, and cerebral defender of the group. Like, really, really high IQ. He's the type of guy that I feel like, once you get to college and you're throwing scouts out at these guys, like you're going to be able to tell him what's coming his way, and he's just going to take it away before you even get the chance, right? And so like super high IQ, really good stick, great off the ground, and then is really solid as a cover as well. And I feel like the first aspect of everything I described is an LSM, but he does a really nice job of just like burying checks and playing great defense regardless of where he does it, and spent a lot more time at close defense than I think I expected him to coming into the summer. And I thought that showed a level of like A, coverability, and B, versatility to his game that helped to, like I said, create a marketable, recruitable package.
And C, confidence, right? It shows his ability to, I want to match up against the very best players in this summer recruiting circuit. And like you met, like a guy like Magliano, just the fearlessness that these guys play with, they want to match up against the best. And you're playing defense against so many elite attacking, you're gonna get beat sometimes. So having that next play mentality for a lot of these guys is super important, and I think Magliano is a guy that embodies that. One guy I want to shout out quickly is Hudson Higbee, Carolina guy who is just a big, lumbering is a term I use a lot for lefties. Just super hard checker, makes his presence known, and plays with a physicality that attackers do not want to match up against.